Hello everyone, just Goran here and welcome back to another Planet Zoo real life inspiration, and today we are looking at the blue wildebeest from the Grasslands Animal Pack. Of course, the wildebeest are a staple African savanna animal, so we will be looking at a whole bunch of African savanna exhibits today, starting with Safaripark Beekse Bergen, where we've got a ginormous African savanna habitat featuring zebra, ellipse waterbuck, blue wildebeest and the Kemsbok. A nice mix of animals, not the largest, most varied mix like we'll see in some of the other zoos, but I mean the entire Beekse Bergen is a safari park. Like, of course they're spreading out the species a little bit. You can also very clearly see that this is a drive-through habitat. You can take your own car and take a ride through the enclosure, which is really cool. In the back there we can see the kind of separate holding. Here we can see it a bit more closer up. Back there are the stalls, but also holding where they can separate animals if need be. Also parts of this enclosure can be closed off from other parts, and recently they've made a connection between this enclosure and the elephant bull yard, so they can also use that to separate animals off, which is pretty interesting. Here we can see the enclosure from the other side, and you can barely tell it's the same enclosure just because of how big it is. It is several hundred meters across. This enclosure is the size of some zoos, like large zoos. So that says a lot, I think. Here you can see what it's like to drive through the enclosure. You go across a cattle grid, making sure the animals can't get out. We pass under the bridge that we were walking on earlier, and there we can see some wildebeest lying in the shade over there. You can often see them out and about. They can get very close up to your car, allowing you to have a great look at them. Over there we can also see a bit of a staff path. And then over here, this is another thing you can do at the Beekse Bergen, and you can take the game drive, which is something that I would highly recommend. It's a very awesome experience, getting some unobstructed views of these animals and really getting a chance to see them very up close. The person driving the game drive will take you right up to the animals at times, when possible, which is just super cool. And here we can see one of the wildebeest. Looks like a bit of a younger one, judging by the horns. Really up close, which is super awesome. So that is pretty much all I have to show you for the Beekse Bergen. So let's move on to the next zoo, which is going to be Parc Animalier de Bouillon. And we can see a part of the jaguar habitat. I think I actually forgot to show that angle in the last video with the jaguar, but over here we're walking up on a mixed exhibit of ostrich and blue wildebeest. So the backstage building over there that we saw earlier was the ostrich backstage, and here we can actually see two ostrich walking around. We'll see that more in the ostrich video. I didn't quite see the wildebeest when I was here, but we can see there on the sign it does say gnu bleu, or blue gnu, or wildebeest. They have several names, but as you can see, the views of this habitat are not very great. It's really hard to look far into the distance. As far as I know, there's no path going around the other side either, which would have been a bit of a nicer view, I think, looking more uphill instead of down through this narrow slit. Over here we do have a view of their backstage, and we can see a wildebeest all the way at the bottom there. You just barely make out its horns. And then there's more of this backstage, nothing too fancy. I think this one's actually for the sable antelope. So let's move on to the next zoo, which will be Monde Sauvage. And we saw this habitat before, I don't know in which animal. I think the bongo and the hippo, we saw this habitat, but we've got a very large African savanna, probably the largest one, and also the most varied one that I've ever seen, because they pretty much just took all of the African antelopes and mammals and whatever and just threw them on this habitat. So here we can see the wildebeest, and we can see able to see cattle. But the best way to see the wildebeest at this zoo is definitely by going by car, because this is also a drive-through enclosure, and that's, I guess, why it's just one big enclosure with everything in there to give you the best experience with the car. I don't know. The Beekse Bergen has the thing where you go across cattle grids, going from habitat to habitat, where you'll see different animals, but this zoo just has one gate that you go through. I think it's still a cattle grid and the gate is open, but just one one thing that you drive through and then it's just one enclosure. Although with tons of animals, I can't even name them all. There's zebra, eland, we saw the Watusi cattle, there's bongo on here, I think there's impala, there's scimitar horned oryx, which we'll see in a second. Just an absolutely crazy variety of animals, and I guess a very cool representation of the savannah, although not all these animals would probably share a range in the wild, especially something like a bongo is more of a rainforest animal anyway, but still pretty interesting and neat. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is about Monde Sauvage, just a very big field with a bunch of trees and some things scattered around. So let's move on to the Allwetterzoo Münster, where we have a very nice looking savanna habitat over here. Really quite beautiful and a lot of viewing points. Like, I had to kind of pick and choose because otherwise it would be too much to show. But you've got many of these different viewing points. As you're only going past this enclosure from one side, you can also see it slightly slopes up, so you got a really cool view of that. And there's also this pelican enclosure next to it, and the pelican can also get onto the savanna habitat, which I think was really quite interesting and cool. And as you cross that bridge, you get to this viewing point, which is a bit more into the enclosure, obviously because we crossed the moat. We've got the same type of telescope that they have at the Bergen, same binoculars, which I thought was really cool. But that's just me being Beekse obsessed. And yeah, just so many fun little viewpoints all around this savanna enclosure, which is just once again filled with all sorts of savanna animals. So yeah, I guess we'll see this habitat again in future videos for like the zebra or the ostrich or whatever, but we'll get to that when we get to that. I considered making a bigger like savanna habitat video so that I wouldn't have to repeat all of these, but then you would have like very few leftover things, and I don't know, it seemed more convenient for people to be like, I want to make a wildebeest habitat, let me look up wildebeest, and then here are some wildebeest habitats, and same thing for ostrich and stuff. So I'm sure the repetition will be fine. I'll be able to talk more about it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, there we could see the pelicans kind of exploring the rest of the habitat. Over here we also got an elevated viewing point. Just so many different kinds of viewing points along this entire habitat, and we get great views of the wildebeest from here specifically. Yeah, it's just really cool. I absolutely love this enclosure. You can also see even a crowned crane over there. Very cool. But that was it for Münster. So let's move to Pairi Daiza, where you might recognize this enclosure because it's also the African buffalo enclosure, although they are not mixed with the wildebeest and such. The African buffalo have their own little area on the left. And then over here we've got what looks like scimitar horned oryx. I think there's also zebra and the blue wildebeest lying over there in the middle. Really nice bit of foliage in the middle as well, keeping the enclosure nice and lush and more visually interesting. I also love the hill sloping up. That's just a thing that I'm a very big fan of in general. A bit of a shame is that you have that very obvious fence in the back, but other than that, this is a quite a nice enclosure. Nice. Pretty spacious and nothing much to complain about. It's not the most amazing thing, but still pretty good. Speaking of not the most amazing thing, over here we are in Pakawi Park, and we've got a savanna habitat. It's a pretty large one. It's got a decent amount of space. In the middle over there you've got all of the backstage, which you can also have a look at. You can go inside, but you mostly see the elephant backstage from there. There is this really cool sign. I really do like this sign talking about the wildebeest and their migrations, different kind of behaviors on the savanna, how different animals interact, either cooperation or competing for food, predation, stuff like that. Really quite awesome. I really like that sign. But other than that, yeah, the habitat is pretty simple. It's just flat and a bunch of logs. It is also connected in a way to the elephant habitat over here. Looks like the savanna animals can go all the way around, as you can see some impala and the wildebeest back there. I'm not sure if they are able to really go into the elephant habitat very easily. They'll have to kind of cross those beams. And over here, this is kind of interesting to see the barrier, which is pretty cool. I do like this barrier design. That's something that I think is pretty inspiring. So thanks for that, at least, Pakawi, I guess. But yeah, next up we have Wildlands Adventure Zoo, and you can see that we're entering the Serenga Safari, which is this enormous habitat, very nice safari savanna habitat with giraffe, water buck, all sorts of stuff. We can also see a truck driving through there, which is a ride that you can take to get more close to the animals, and it's made very adventure-y by like you're driving through these bodies of water, stuff like that. We also see some nice theming over here with the toilet buildings, really quite cool. Yeah, and the entire habitat is kind of this pit, I guess you could call it a pit. This is, by the way, where you enter the safari ride. But yeah, it is a bit of a pit, but you don't really quite notice it as you're walking around it. It is designed pretty well in that sense, and it helps that it's just really nice looking faux rock walls all the way around. As for the ride itself, I'm not going to show that much of it because you don't see the enclosure that much better from the ride. It's mainly to get closer to the animals, and you do get some nice unobstructed views that way. Over here we're standing next to a big restaurant area, where you've got these really beautiful views of the entire habitat. You can definitely tell that it's still, like, Wildlands is one of the youngest big zoos in the Netherlands, and I feel like this habitat kind of shows it. I don't know what it is specifically, but something about it just feels very young and modern, I guess, is another nice way to put it. But yeah, here you can see some cool views of the wildebeest over there. You can see the adventurous adventures of the car ride. Wow, so intense. No, it is really quite fun to take the car ride. Over here, a theme of this area, of the Serenga area, is poaching. We also saw that in the Backtrain Camel video, where we entered the headquarters of the poachers. Well, over here is a ranger station, where the rangers are trying to crack down on the poachers. So you can see they're like tracking them down. There's all sorts of materials that the rangers would use to protect the savannah against the poachers. There's some educational science about this as well, like how do you protect the savannah. There's a cool viewing point outside as well, where you see more of the savannah itself. So yeah, you really can get views from this place from all different sides, and it looks great on all sides, and you can get a view of all the animals. What's also cool on this little balcony is that there's a camera filming the savannah over here, which is of course a tool that the rangers would use. You can see here me doing a little jump because I was trying to tell, I was waving in front of the camera to see if the live feed over here is actually live, and yes, I could indeed see my hand pop up on these screens, which was really, really cool. But yeah, some more views as you're leaving this place. And you can also see over there where it transitions between the camel habitat and the savannah. And there's a bit of a cattle grid there. But that's it for Wildlands. And now we're going to Bergen Zoo, which doesn't have blue wildebeest. They have eastern white bearded wildebeest. But since there aren't really any zoos, or at least there's not that many zoos that have black wildebeest, I figured this would be the main wildebeest video. I might be seeing black wildebeest on my trip to Germany, so maybe I'll do a quick black wildebeest video then. But yeah, I figured let's just put all the wildebeest in here. Also, Bergen is just absolutely stunning. We already saw the big savanna. What was that? The big savanna habitat, and over here we're now entering like an elevated portion. So we can see all the different animals. We got giraffe, zebra, the wildebeest, waterbuck, oryx, and the white rhino as well. So yeah, an awesome mix, even with some of the more bigger animals, which you also saw at Wildlands. They also had rhino and stuff on there. But yeah, this elevated path continues for quite a bit. We're entering a second sheltered viewing point over here, where you can see kind of a different side of the savanna habitat. It kind of has these two sides that are separated by like a nice big row of trees. Over here we've got a nice view of the white bearded wildebeest right there. And there's also this crossroads, which has a bit of a shortcut to go outside, back to kind of the park area of the park, instead of going up more to the to the balcony area that we'll be visiting right now, because this is a beautifully themed area with all of this amazing rockwork and these plants. We're actually on top of the backstage right now of the savanna habitat. Like below us, I think would be all of these stalls for the rhino and all the other savanna animals. But yeah, just look at all of this rockwork. It looks so amazing. And as we pass by it, we get to a bit of a seating area where you can eat meals from the restaurant that is adjacent to this. Yeah, it looks absolutely awesome, and getting this elevated view from what's essentially, it feels like a cliff when you're on here. Definitely very, very cool kind of view, very unique, and dare I say, inspiring. So here you see more of the restaurant. This is connected to the bush, which is a large rainforest hall of this zoo. So yeah, it's just a very nice integrated area, and it looks super, super cool. Speaking of the bush, from the bush you can enter these doors when they're open. Basically what Bergen does is when animals are not outside, they will open up the indoor areas, but when the animals are outside they will close those doors, so you won't be able to go here. Currently it's winter, so the animals were inside. As you can see over here, we can see some wildebeest lying in the back there. But yeah, these stalls look super awesome. They look super unique and interesting. So definitely worth showing that as well. But anyway, those were all the wildebeest enclosures that I have seen and wanted to share with you guys. Hope you got some wildebeest inspiration out of that, and I will see you in the next inspiration video. Bye bye!